I am definitely a data and analytics nerd. I love the numbers, and I think that I've seen, as fraudulent actors get smarter, we have to, not should, we have to, right, leverage AI.
From Tyler Technologies, it's the Tyler Tech Podcast, your source for insightful conversations with thought leaders addressing the pressing issues in our communities. I'm Josh Henderson, and I'm on the corporate marketing team here at Tyler. Thanks for joining us. In each episode, we dive into the essential topics shaping our society and shed light on the individuals, places, and technologies empowering the public sector. If you like what you hear, please consider giving us a 5-star rating and review, subscribing on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you listen to podcasts, and recommending the show to others. On today's episode, we're joined by Tyler's Vice President of Payments, Morgan Jines. Morgan's extensive experience has focused on delivering cutting-edge payment technology solutions to the public sector, with an emphasis on improving both payer interactions and operational efficiency. In this episode, Morgan shares insights from a recent research study on the government payment experience, exploring how a unified payment platform can change the way agencies handle transactions. She explores the benefits of integrating payment systems across different departments, the importance of a seamless user experience for both constituents and internal staff, and how modern technology can simplify security and compliance requirements. With a deep understanding of the evolving landscape of government payments, Morgan offers practical advice for agencies looking to modernize their payment systems without sacrificing efficiency or security. Whether you're grappling with fragmented payment processes or seeking ways to enhance your agency's reporting or payment security, this conversation is packed with valuable takeaways. We hope you enjoy the episode. All right, Morgan, thanks so much for joining me today on the podcast.
Thank you, Josh. Happy to be here.
Amazing. So I wanted to start the conversation with a bit of your background. So if you could just walk our listeners through, your career journey up to and including what you're doing now, sort of in the payment space here at Tyler.
Perfect. Happy to do so. I have spent my entire career in both payments and government, so the best of both worlds. Very quickly out of college, I knew that I wanted to leverage something that was both financial services related and a bit of technology, just because there was so much heightened focus on that and how we could bring the two together. So my first role was in government, leading the payment strategy, which was very different than what payments was now as we know it. And it was just really trying to determine how do we get an embedded software experience to local government within a very specific market, more localities, not state level. And so I did that for about 7 years. And then the other side of the coin was just a pure play payments company. So transitioned to learn more about payments, working for a payments company, specifically servicing both government and healthcare technology companies. And so both of those experiences gave me different views of financial services and technology for government. And then most recently, joining Tyler as our Vice President of Payments, really trying to understand our strategy for both locals at the state level, at the federal level, and then how we can bring modern technology and services, digital wallets, things like that, disbursements, to all of our different players that we have in our clients. And as you know, we have a lot of different Tyler software products that enable payments, but then we also support standalone payments and enterprise payments to government agencies that maybe don't have Tyler products. And so a lot of strategies involved with that. And so trying to organize all of our technology and our teams to understand the best go-to-market to deliver a good client experience.
That's great. Obviously, a lot of payments experience for you. So we're obviously going to talk about payments in the world of payments quite a bit today during our conversation, including this concept of a unified payment system, as well as research findings from the Center for Digital Government that was done in partnership with Tyler. But first, kind of wanted to explore more generally the idea of modernization, sort of as it relates to payments. For government agencies looking to modernize their payment systems, what are the best practices to ensure a smooth transition that benefits both residents and staff?
Yep, absolutely. So this, as you can imagine, looks a little bit different for all different types of government because they operate very differently. But I think some just key things to be aware of is evaluating what that landscape looks like. So trying to understand how each service or department within a city or county, how are they set up today? What do their business processes look like? So really understanding an inventory of not just their payment solutions that they have, but an inventory of their own processes. And so, for finance, that might look like, how do they perform audits? How do they support the financial reconciliation? But then for the IT side of the world, that might look like, how are they adhering to PCI compliance, and what are some of the compliance requirements around the cloud? And so it's really, trying to understand what's important to everybody, involving those key stakeholders. And then before you start determining who would be best in, partnering to understand those needs, prioritizing what the needs that you have are across your key internal stakeholders. And then whether you make that decision to go through a formal procurement or start doing evaluations of different vendors, always making sure that you have those table stake requirements in mind and your priorities. And then, when you're looking at demonstrations, those would be ones that you would certainly make sure that everyone is checking those boxes for. And then even with that, maybe there's some, what does the future forward look like for us? And so I would also, just recommend making sure that you choose a government payments partner, kind of touching on being involved just a little bit of healthcare. In my previous role, the requirements for healthcare would be very different, right, than with government. And so understanding the importance of a government partner will certainly help drive forward the overall vision for that government.
It's really great advice. And now, as I mentioned earlier, we kind of want to jump into the survey findings as well from the Center for Digital Government. The survey mentions an evolution in how agencies approach payment systems. What technological advancements are driving this change, and how are they sort of reshaping the landscape of government payments?
Yep, absolutely. Most of this is constituent driven. And so, as we see different demographics come along that start to have homes and start to pay utility bills or buy business permits, they have different expectations for how they pay. So one of the first ones that I think of is digital wallets, right? And then being able to make that payment directly from their phone or with Apple Pay. And so that certainly is one aspect of it. And I think the other one is just ease of use. So if the same individual needs to pay both their animal license, business license, their taxes, they wouldn't want to have to go to 2 or 3 different places to do that. They would be looking for one portal or, one place within their phone that they could go and take care of all these things at once. Maybe they even want to manage payment plans for an aging parent. So I would say constituents are really driving that. Then the technology and the ways that we can pay are continuing to grow. And so being able to adopt those different payment methods is certainly driving a lot of the government demands to be able to offer that to their citizens and constituents as well.
Yeah, so sort of evolving as the constituents' needs sort of evolve in the space is definitely important. Many local governments still use multiple payment vendors across different departments. This lack of integration with existing software, payment and financial management system, it's often cited as a key challenge. How can technology empower governments to effectively overcome these integration hurdles and still deliver a seamless payer experience?
Yeah, absolutely. And it is a huge challenge. In that survey, one of the top items of importance was integration. And there's a few different reasons for that. One problem with having disparate systems becomes, the complexity of having data in different places. And so you have different sources of truth and not a single source of truth. And that really creates a challenge for, you think back to, accounting and auditing. If they're having to go to multiple places to feed data to their auditors, or they're having to manage all of that data to search for payments, to search for transactions, it creates a lot of time that they have to work through, for both their internal processes, as well as if they're trying to help, a citizen or constituent that has come in and asked a question. And so having, whether it's an ERP system or, a tax system, whatever system of record that is, having all of those be fed through one single source of truth is incredibly important, to be able to remove those disparate systems and just improve not just the accuracy of the data, but the timeliness as well. Because being able to perform tasks more quickly helps both our internal and external customers.
Yeah, so less headaches for the constituents, less headaches for the agencies.
Absolutely.
It's a win-win.
It is. It's a win-win.
So unified payment solutions, they're highlighted as a way to sort of standardize both constituent experiences and back office processes. What are the potential risks and rewards of moving to such a system, in your opinion?
Yeah, absolutely. I think the risk is that it is a large undertaking to be able to do, in the first point, like what are some recommendations, to be able to go through evaluating all of your systems and not just evaluating them, but prioritize them and really do your own analysis before you even get to the process of trying to understand the market and go through demonstrations. And, we have seen in the time that I've been at Tyler and even before, more and more cities and counties are going to formal procurement to bring together a unified payment platform and have one vendor provide all of their payment needs. And I think there's some things, that stick out in some of these RFPs that we've seen, and it is really focusing on, that integration, the security, the simplicity for the payer. And so, there's certainly that time investment, which is a risk. And then I think also, once you choose one, when you are upending all of the current systems, right, you're going through the implementation phase. Like anytime technology is involved and data is involved, there is a commitment to get that across the finish line. And so I think the risk is certainly all of those resources that are invested and then, the data that will be transferred ultimately to a new provider. But the reward of it is certainly all of I think just we talked about, the payer expectations and delivering that to them. But internally, bringing together all of these systems, it cuts down on administrative costs. It helps the networking and security staff because they're not having to manage, specifically if you're deploying your new platform in the cloud, which we're also hearing a lot about. As it pertains to payments. So you're moving to one provider, you're moving your software and all of your data to the cloud. Well, then your IT and your security folks that are managing that part, the things that they're doing for PCI are minimized and certainly also for their SOC 2 requirements and, being able to deploy things in the cloud. As we are partnered with AWS for that. And so it's choosing the right strategic partners that enables us to bring together all of the rewards. And then I think, secondly, besides the internal processes, the rewards is also, this is an evolving industry. And so with payments, there's constantly new mandates that are coming through for banking requirements, for card holder data requirements in terms of tokenization and protecting that cardholder data. And if you've chosen a vendor that, is within government specifically, you're not constantly having to look out for these requirements and these mandates and determine what new processes do I have to implement, which vendor do I need to choose for this? And you have someone that's really there, shielding you from that. And also modernizing and maintaining that compliance with their technology that you've implemented. And so it's very much a future forward, future proof, preventative that you're installing as well, which is very much a reward.
Stay tuned. We'll be right back with more of the Tyler Tech Podcast. I hope you're enjoying listening to this episode of the Tyler Tech Podcast. I'm here with my colleague Jay Champion to talk about the importance of tech modernization. Are you struggling to maintain your legacy systems? It might be time for a change.
That's right, Josh. We just released a white paper that outlines the 5 main risks of legacy systems and the benefits of modernizing your digital infrastructure.
From security weaknesses to inefficiencies and high maintenance costs, legacy systems can really hold back government agencies. So what are some of the benefits of future-proofing with an updated tech stack?
Modern cloud-based solutions help to streamline processes, protect against cyber threats, improve the resident experience, meet compliance requirements, and provide more scalability.
Are you ready to leave your legacy systems behind and improve your digital services? Check out our show notes for resources to help you get started and reach out to us at podcast@tylertech.com to connect with a Tyler expert today. Now, let's get back to the Tyler Tech podcast. Yeah, so we've talked, about more generally the benefits of a unified payment system, but for agencies that have transitioned to a unified payment system that you've seen, what are sort of like the immediate and the long-term impacts that they've observed, that you've observed on both constituent satisfaction and operational efficiency?
I think one of the immediate ones is certainly an increase in payer adoption. And so when you are adding the ability to pay all of the bills or get registered licenses or your tax refunds and all of these things, you are having better engagement with your community and ultimately increasing the reputation and the trust in your community and your brand. But certainly the increase in adoption from being able to set up recurring payment plans for your utility bill, being able to manage multiple different payment plans with cards on file and not having to walk into an office and pay for a certain bill or for register for licenses. So you'll see an increase in adoption. We recently had a client that went live and with an end-to-end transaction management platform that was all unified, and increasing that adoption and customer satisfaction was certainly at the top of the list. And so, these types of things are becoming table stakes to be able to have alternative payment methods, to be able to have multiple cards associated with one account. So that's certainly an immediate increase in satisfaction. And then on the operational side, being able to take tasks for reporting financial reconciliation by having one single source of truth, it saves so much time. And I even think about, in payments, right? You may have some departments that have different business rules than others across one city. So you may have some departments that have to pass on those payment fees. And then you may have others that absorb them, and that's the rules that they have. And they can maintain those different rules, still have one integration and single source of truth, but then the reporting is all maintained still through one single pane of glass. And so I think the importance of that, being able to have like a rollout view, just imagine a single dashboard that shows your adoption, that shows the payouts and batches for a single day across departments. But still, each department was able to maintain, right, the integrity of their business processes is incredibly important and valuable.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And, we can't talk about the digital payment space without obviously talking about security. That's hugely important in this space. It's, people's livelihoods, it's people's money we're talking about. So how can agencies sort of ensure they're maintaining these robust security measures without compromising on usability and convenience for their residents?
Absolutely. And I think this goes back to having, a strategic partner specifically in government, because when you're dealing with people's money, there are so many different councils that are involved beyond, the city or county's ownership, right? And that's, I think, for car data, I think of PCI DSS. And for ACH or eChecks, I think of NACHA. And there's constantly new mandates that are coming along to protect cardholders' data. And it's your job, as a local government to implement either these processes yourself, which oftentimes means, relying upon a strategic partner. And so once you have that strategic partner, I think ask questions, right? Make sure that you understand from an auditing perspective, what is my role in this equation? So an example is recently PCI 4.0 was released, and there's an additional requirement if you're processing a certain number of transactions, which is to have an additional scanning, so ASV scanning. And at Tyler, we have deployed our role in that and how that will impact our partners, and we've taken care of that through our strategic partnership. But for others, right, it would be that question of how are you solving for PCI 4.0? What are my requirements? When do I need to bring in my quarterly scans? How do I do that? There's self-questionnaires with PCI. And so, do I have to provide these, or is it my strategic partner? And so everyone plays a role in this chain of, command for security. but it's asking those questions and understanding your role. And then, secondly, once you have your strategic partner, making sure you choose someone that has clearly conveyed your role, their responsibilities, and then acts on that plan as well.
Those are really great insights. And now, like most industries, there's obviously a lot of talk about AI, artificial intelligence, in government services and the payment space. How can AI and automation be leveraged to improve both payer interactions and internal processes? And are there any sort of emerging AI-driven solutions that stand out in this space that you've seen?
Yes. And AI, I'm starting to believe, is no longer a buzzword. It is here and here to
Fair
stay.
enough. Yep.
We have gotten past that. And it's really interesting because I am definitely a data and analytics nerd. I love the numbers, and I think that I've seen, as fraudulent actors get smarter, that we have to, not should, we have to, right, leverage AI. Some examples is, card testing and being able to create someone's false identity and use their card. And so one way immediately that I think AI can help with payments is having a mechanism in which you detect that and automatically decline a transaction. And so this is something that is already very prevalent in payments, and a lot of the big players, such as Tyler, is involved in identifying these fraudulent transactions before they occur and then automatically declining them. And so again, thinking to how does this help, internally with the different reporting and auditing requirements, you automatically minimize chargebacks. So if you are preventing fraud before it even gets to an authorization and a settlement, then it's not going to negatively impact, your reporting and financial reconciliation. And then you're not having to manage chargebacks. You're not having to manage the payer interactions and the frustrations that they have by having to work through the chargeback. So that's one example that's more reactive, right? Reactive to something that was a consequence of a fraudulent actor. But I think another good example, which is more positive than a bad actor, is thinking of just trends and data analytics. And so being able to forecast and predict different revenue models based upon what time of the month do people typically pay, what are the seasonalities in some of their payment trends, and that helps predict when you would need certain resources to be able to work through some of that backlog. Helps with predicting capital projects within a government as well. So if there's certain time of year that revenue collection and money is flowing more prevalent than others, then that would be a time that you would know for budget season to allocate certain funds for this quarter or this month. And so I think a lot about, predicting revenue and the cash flows specific to capital projects and ventures with government. And this, might be more applicable at the state level when they're looking at all of the different localities that would be taking on certain tasks, and budgeting is a little bit more important, but it still applies at the local level, but just probably at a lesser scale.
Yep. Really important and interesting insights there as well. And now we like to sort of wrap up conversations with kind of looking ahead into the future. And we've talked a lot about how rapidly the payments space is evolving in terms of the technology involved. But curious to get your take on what you see the future looking like for government payment systems, and sort of how do you envision the role of technology evolving, say, in the next 5 to 10 years in this space?
Absolutely. And so payments, I think this question requires focusing a little bit on the evolution of payments and the life cycle of a payment transaction, because this, even in and of itself, the last 5 to 10 years has changed dramatically. And there's so many players in the chain of a payment transaction, and it can be very confusing. There's sponsoring banks, and then there's a payment gateway, and there's a payment processor. And so I think, kind of one reason to have a unified payment provider is it does eliminate a lot of the challenges of how complex payments can be. And so technology has really enabled the payments to become less confusing whenever you're having this unified and end-to-end transaction management platform through one provider. So I expect that the technology will continue to be smarter, and more parts of this equation can be less confusing because we're able to facilitate payments in real time, right? And so I think about funding, and you think about e-checks and ACH, and typically funding for e-checks ACH could be 3 to 5 business days. And then if there were non-sufficient funds, getting that back ultimately, into your system of record could be up to 2 weeks. And so you can imagine the impact that would have on the financial reconciliation process. And so I think when you start thinking about things of FedNow and real-time payments, these types of challenges, which create those pains in the reporting process, get minimized because payments are delivered in real time. They're posted in real time. And so I think we'll continue to see technologies, as we've already seen, that help to increase the time into the payer's wallet and then ultimately into the bank account on both sides of the equation. I think another one is disbursements. And this one is a little bit less touched on, but it is one I think that will rise in the next, several years. And you think about paying for child support payments or for unclaimed property, or even thinking into the court system and being able to put card on files for an inmate. And being able to do that as a way to provide payment is incredibly powerful. And I think we're really just scratching the surface of all that we can do with disbursements, which everyone, I think, naturally for payments thinks of what we're all used to, right, is, paying for a certain bill within local government. But I think the other side of the coin is equally important, and we'll start to hear more about that. And there's less providers of that in the market is the reality of it. And so, you're constantly seeing new startups for payments, but it's that one side of the coin. So another thing to sort of check off, not just of what's coming, but when you're partnering with a strategic future forward government partner, that is something to consider. What all are their options, and are they preparing for the future, in the form of disbursement?
That's fantastic, Morgan. Thank you so much for joining me today on the podcast. Really love this conversation. Really appreciated the conversation. And we'll have you back again soon. So we can't wait to have you back.
Likewise. Thank you, Josh.
I hope you enjoyed this conversation with Morgan Jines. If you'd like to learn more about technology in the payment space and other topics discussed throughout the episode, check out our show notes for more resources. A modern digital infrastructure allows the public sector to adapt in the digital age. From operational agility to data management and analytics, as well as cost savings, security, compliance, and scalability, governments are poised to take advantage of innovative technology to create more efficiencies in their systems and better support and connect their communities. Tyler creates solutions made exclusively for the public sector and has experts with government experience ready to support you on this journey. I hope you're excited about what the future holds and will reach out to us at podcast@tylertech.com to connect with a subject matter expert if you'd like to learn more. And whether it's a unified payment system or modernizing your digital infrastructure or something else entirely, we want to hear from you about what you'd enjoy hearing more of and how we can make the Tyler Tech podcast even better. Fill out our audience survey in the show notes today to let us know how you heard about the show and your ideas for future episodes. And don't forget to subscribe to the show and rate and review the podcast. For Tyler Technologies, I'm Josh Henderson. Thanks for joining the Tyler Tech Podcast.